Your Wild Sage book is a children's poem. How did you come across that? What happened?
Well, I was at a writer's colony, and I just arrived, and before I dug into the adult stuff, I decided I would just do something for the fun of it, and this rhyme popped into my head, Dorothy McMoogle, and I thought, what goes with that? A kumquat and a bugle. And so just that rhyme started off the whole story. And from there on, then I threw in a couple of a boring neighborhood and some parents that were slightly off their rockers, and Dorothy and her aunt, and a lot of other things.
Aunt Dottie, yes.
Yeah.
Aunt Lottie. I love that character. In the book, you've chosen, as you say, kumquats and bugles. But did you know when you started writing it what a kumquat was?
Well, yes, I had a vague idea. I've seen them on platters, when you get salads at restaurants and things like that, and you see these things and you don't know what to do with them. I didn't realize they look like little oranges, about an inch in size perhaps, but you just pop the whole thing in your mouth. So the skin is sweet and the inside is sort of tart, and they make them for marmalade and cheesecake, things like that. And but the word just came into my brain, and I was go after that.
And bugles? Have you got an attachment to bugles, or a story from your family that brings in bugles?
I've had a sister who basically drove us out of the house with a trumpet. And I play a little harmonica myself, but that's the limit of my ability.
Your book is beautiful. It was illustrated by Wendy Winter, who really got into the kumquat theme with all of her lovely round orange kumquats, and so you must be absolutely delighted with the book. I think that the most important thing about this book is the rhythm of the words, and let's show what it does. Give it a run.
Okay, well, we mentioned Dottie and Lottie. And so Dorothy's bored with her life, and she goes to see her parents are doing crazy parent things, like her mother's pouring gray paint down her pants, her dad's filling up the fridge with coal, anything to make the world a little grayer, And Dorothy just can't stand this, so she calls up her Aunt Lottie, who lives in Rome, and Lottie is crazy about polka dots, and Dorothy loves kumquats and bugles. So she calls up Aunt Lottie, who arrives, and they start painting the house polka dots all over the place. And so it just starts out like this. The dots flew fast and furious.
They flew on thin and thick.
We flung them by the bushel.
We flung them by the brick.
With paint and paste and paper.
We swiped and swabbed and swung.
There was not a single splunk of gray.
When everything was done, and yet...
You know what it's like when something's missing and it isn't, and that doesn't make sense, but it is, though it can't be, because someone would know if it were, but they don't, and it is. Of course, I said, as Lottie shrugged a shrug. We need a kumquat painting to hang above the rug. I think our orchestra should practice a little more.
I think so.
Yeah.
You've read this many times now to children, to classrooms, to library crowds. Are you tired of it yet?
No. In fact, every time I do it, I learn more, and the kids are part of the reading. I try to involve them. They love to flap their flugel, which is another part of the book. And they love to hear about the parents doing things parents shouldn't be doing, or the bad example parents set for the kids. And so every time I do it, it's fun. And then I also like to tell a few other stories, or ask the kids what they like to hear about and what they like to do as far as reading, because the whole thing is about encouraging kids to pursue whatever their dream is or whatever their passion is. It might be painting, it might be storytelling, it might be just anything that they feel like makes them them.
Cool. And that's what writing is all about. That's why we have such a strong literary tradition in Saskatchewan, because we're a bunch of strong individualists.
That's right.
I love it.
That's collectively individualists. Yeah.
Okay, so this is your first illustrated book of poetry, and it's a children's book, of course, so that makes sense. But what was it like to work with an artist?
Well, this is different than my other books. I have a lot of photography in my books, actually, and it seems the more poetry I write, the more images that actually wind up in the part of the text. But what's different here is when you're working on a children's book, it's a real collaboration with the artist, and that's why in a children's book, artists get the same sort of recognition that the writer does. It's a real partnership, and it really picks the characters up off the page. And the other thing that happens is the images and the characters, we talk about them, of course. I talked about them with Wendy, but she creates the images, and so the characters actually expand, I guess, the landscape of the book. And it's a great thing to see. And in this particular picture, she did things like she has the motif of this crow that appears here and there throughout the book. And the drawings themselves are wonderful, quite wonderful. And of course, her daughter was the model, or her granddaughter was the model for it. And so it was a great experience for her daughter. And I like to tell the kids about that when I read the book, because then they can sort of start to imagine themselves in a book a little bit better. But the job she did with the illustrations is just really pretty wonderful.
I do love that zany crow, always doing something silly on every page. And I don't think there's a two-page spread where there's not the crow. And yet that wasn't part of your writing at all. That was completely Wendy bringing in her little own touch.
And that's right, a little motif that sort of drifts in and out of the book, and it kind of ties it together. Maybe it's a little bit of a muse, either for the artist or maybe the storyteller. A little hard to tell. I guess crows can learn to talk a little bit, I guess, so it could be helping the writer out, perhaps. Yeah. And but it is really a wonderful skill, and the overall design of the book, it just felt so good when it came back from the designer, and it just feels good in the hand, and lots of allusions to painting, which is what Dorothy is. She's a painter, so that sort of fits in again.
Thanks, Bruce.
Yeah.
Cool
Glad
book.
to do it. Thank you.